Hi, I'm Kay Webster. I am the author of 150 plus books, and they range from anything between contemporary romance to dark and taboo, everything in between. I love reading, I love writing, I love drinking coffee. Books are my happy place.
Welcome to Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. This is a soft space to explore romance in books where no topic is too taboo. I'm your host, Casey, and this week I'm sitting down with author Kay Webster. You may know her from her books, The Wild and the Free, or perhaps you know her from a million other titles from her massive catalog of books. She's a prolific writer whose stories never fail to inspire big reactions from the book community and beyond. One of the reasons I love her work so much is that I can always feel the immense compassion she has for her characters, who are fictionalized, flawed human beings navigating conflict on their complicated journeys to their happily ever after. Something that we can all relate to. And I'm so grateful that we get to do this deep dive into what inspires her work. Welcome to the Love Letters and Books podcast. I am so glad you're here. So you're a person who almost needs no introduction. If people love reading, if they love books, they have heard your name, they've heard about your books. You've written over 150 books. So I want to just dive in by picking your brain. What inspires and motivates you to continue writing such an extensive body of work? And I know it can seem like I'm inspired and I write, but this is a lot of books. So just start me off. What's this like for you?
For me, writing is much like reading. It's escapism. And as a child, it was like escaping like traumatic things, it's like reading, just hide, whether it was, bullying or stuff at home or whatever. It's like, read your book, you can disappear, you're doing something cool, it's exciting. And then now that my life is essentially normal and boring as an adult, it's again, you get to escape into the adventures and, the excitement. And so I love to be writing like all the time. So that's why the stories just keep coming, because for me, it's just my brain gets to go into this fun thing and I get to go play. And at the same time, I'm making something that other people can play into. And I don't know, it's just very satisfying to do.
Did it always feel like a calling, a profession? What did it feel like to you? I mean, did you always know that this is what you wanted to do?
No, I wish that I would have started sooner, because I'm 44 now. So back whenever I was really into reading, like sixth grade and stuff, there wasn't Kindle or anything like that. It was like, if you wanted to write a book, you had to type it on your typewriter, and then you had to package it up and make 1,000 copies and send it all over the world and get a million rejection letters. And that just always was such a yucky, complicated process that I never even thought about it. I loved reading. I loved making up stories. I loved making up like stuff with my Barbie dolls, like, and music videos. Like I would make up music videos to all the songs on the radio. I loved to create stories, but I didn't know I could do this in writing format. And it wasn't until probably like 11 years ago. And one of my friends was like, "Oh, I'm going to write a book." And I was like, "What?" Like, she likes books, but she doesn't love, breathe, live for books like me. And I was like, "I don't understand, why is she not intimidated by the process?" And she's like, "Oh, I'll just self-publish." And I was like, "Wait a minute, tell me a little bit more about this." And I literally just pinned her down basically and picked her brain, got all of the information, and literally we left the conversation. She never finished writing her book. Meanwhile, 10 days later, I had a book complete. So it was just like, all I needed was, I don't know, the realization that it could be done, and it was no longer this tedious, long, complicated process. Like, I could do the thing as long as I had the energy to do it, and I did.
Oh, I love that you're sharing that, because I think stories like that are really important for people to hear and to be reminded of, that sometimes we're blocking ourselves with the unknown, right? There's probably a solution to every problem we can think of. And it's so beautiful when we're inspired by the people in our lives just doing the thing. and look at the journey that's taken you on. And I think that's incredible. You've impacted so many people's lives with your stories. And it's incredible to me, who is also of your generation, same age, and thinking of, yeah, all of those blocks when we were younger and how different it is now that you can have that agency and autonomy and self publish and do those things. So I'm very inspired just talking to you for a few minutes. So let's get into some of the things that you're known for. One of the things that in the book world, if you say the word taboo, your name is at the top of the list. And I love that. I love your books. I think that they are so creative. You are brilliant at world building and character development. So, what is that like for you? Did you know when you began writing that these were topics that you wanted to address, characters that you wanted to share with people, or did that develop in your writing?
Well, it definitely developed. For me, growing up, I read horror, suspense, thrillers, mysteries, really weird things, but, like, I didn't read romance. Like, I was not a romance girl. And, then my friend was like, "Oh, you need to read 50 Shades," and I was like, "I don't know about this." And then I read it, I was like, "Actually, I like that because it had, like, the elements of suspense and things like that, but it also had, like, the steamy things, and I was like, "This is kinda cool." And so then I started reading some romance, and I was like, "I like romance because it pulls in all of the stuff that I like and also gives a love story." And then Pepper Winters came along and I read dark romance and I was like, "Okay, wow, I really like this because this takes, like, the really just dark elements that I really love and still has the love story, and it's just that much more intense." And I was like, "This is I can see myself doing this." But, of course, I started, like, tiptoeing in the water and just kinda getting a feel for the environment and did a lot of just very contemporary type stuff. But as I started writing, like, that urge to do darker and just more twisted things was, like, calling to me, and as I got braver and developed, like, an audience, I was like, "Okay, now I feel comfortable, I can try something new." The Taboo was more or less just a as a reader, I'm a mood reader, so I jump around to different things, so I might read all of the alien books, and then next week, I'm reading all of the zombie books, like, so I came across a Taboo book, and I was like, "Okay, this is really," and someone sent it to me as a joke, and it was, like, one that you had to get off a website or whatever, and I was like, "I really like that," it was fun, it was different, it was weird, I loved it, and so then I went on a search for more books like that, and I found I can't even remember who it was, but it was the Under Nolan's Bed or something. I can't remember the name of it, but it was on Amazon, and they said that there was a version out there that was banned or whatever, and I was like, "What is that?" But I read the Amazon version. It was very intense, very taboo. It was very, like, layered with emotions, and I was like, "Okay, I really like this story." But then I couldn't find anything else like it. Everything out there was very porny. And it was like, "Oh, dad's best friend, she just turned 18, triple X, la, la, la." And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to read that. Like, I'm not here for that. I want the complication, the we can't do this, will we, won't we? Like, that was the part that I liked. And I was like, I know, I'll write my own story that I want to read. And literally, it just came to me. And I was like, "Oh, the wilderness. Oh, this is exciting." And then they'll be forced together and it'll be really complicated, but then they won't have people out there and, "Oh, this is me exciting." And so I tell my husband and I'm like, "Let me tell you about the wild." And he was like, "Chrissy, you can't write that." And I was like, "Excuse me, I can write it." And so, because I'm very like oppositional disorder. Like, you tell me I can't do it, I'm gonna go do it, And, my brain just works that way. And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna write it now, of course." And then I told my best friend Misty, I was like, "Here's a story, what do you think?" And she was like, "Ooh, that sounds good." And so I was like, "Okay, I got somebody in the book world that's gonna, like, let me do this." And so I wrote my story in 7 days, from Sunday to Sunday, I wrote The Wild. I was that consumed by the story, like, I literally just was spending, like, 10, 12-hour days just writing, boom, 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 boom. And I finished it and I sent it to Misty and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so good. I love it." I was like, "Yes." And so then I sent it to my beta readers and I should have known, like, this was the first inkling that maybe this could turn into something. Because they were like, "Oh, the story was really good, but Kristi, that was pretty, like, intense, like," but they were so sweet and so nice to me, and I was like, "I know, right?" You know, like, they were just very nicely saying, "Are you ready for what's about to happen?" And I was, like, clueless. And then I didn't really think that it was a problem because I had read, like, taboo stories that were in that same vein or whatever, and then it blew up after that, so.
Well, I mean, I have about 45 questions about what you just said, so let's unpack a few of them. One of the words you used was brave. And I also heard you talk about realizing that you had an audience out there. So I'm a believer that you can be criticized for anything. I mean, you could give someone CPR and they're like, who do you think you are? I mean, the world can be really harsh that way. But then when you're also exploring your creativity and being bold and putting it out there and trusting that you have an audience and knowing that you might not find your audience. It might make its way or make the rounds with people who are committed to not understanding that it's a work of fiction and it's just fun and creative and wild. Let's just talk about the bravery. Tell me about that. How do you preserve yourself? How do you maintain those boundaries? And how do you stay true to your calling, your vision, your creativity?
I think because at the end of the day, I do what makes me happy, what I wanna read, and I've always been a person that is considerate of other people. Like, I am considerate of people's feelings. I do worry about hurting people. I don't ever wanna hurt people, and in my stories, I am careful not to cross certain lines as far as, like, certain things that I feel like are hurtful. But in my stories, like, I don't know, I feel like I'm comfortable enough in the fact that I'm being considerate to humanity as a whole, but I'm giving, like, a really creative, cool story, and I can just stand behind it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I'm comfortable in my work. There's never any, like, "I don't know if I should have done that or not." Like, I put it out there. I'm 100%. I'm gonna stand behind my work.
This is an important conversation, and I think that it's really helpful for people to hear someone say that because that inner voice, that inner critic, whether it's our own voice or someone else's, can be really loud and really strong. And, you're talking about your body of work, which is bold stories that people love, but even in different areas of our lives, people feel that way, that they feel like they can't do those things. So that's why I did want to ask you about that. And one other thing I noticed you do very well is presenting yourself very clearly. There's always clear trigger warnings or an author's note. And I want to talk about the way you create consent and awareness with your audience and the care that you take in that as you're taking us on this journey, because the stories are wild and layered and complicated and challenging, right, to the reader.
Mhm.
But as a reader who loves your writing, I feel very safe entering your world. So,
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit about how you create that energy?
Well, for me, I've never been one for shock value, which is weird saying that like as the taboo queen or whatever, but that's not true. People accuse me that a lot. Like you write for shock value. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't write for shock value. There might be shocking things that happen in the story, but the story is not written as a marketing quip or whatever. It's literally a story that just I need to tell. It's different. It's weird. I want people to like challenge their way of thinking. So I do try to warn people like this is dark. It's going to have some content that might upset you. If you are worried about that kind of thing, please just step away. But my stories do end happily. Like that's kind of like my brand. Yes, I'm going to take you through all of this stuff, but we're going to end happily. So if you can just trust me. I've had a couple books in the beginning. I say just trust me and get through this book. When you're halfway through and you want to quit, don't quit. Trust me, get to the end. And I feel like yes, I have built that trust because they can see, okay, she did make it right in a way that works for me and makes me happy by the end of it, and she did warn me, and I don't know, I feel like I give you the warning, let you make that decision, and if you still go read it and you're upset, that's kinda on you.
One of the things that I find very interesting is And I'll take the wild as an example, right? How reactive people can be to something that they find shocking or taboo versus what we have accepted. So, without giving any spoilers away for anyone who's not read the book, there are moments of violence in the book that are very socially acceptable that should be shocking and should be taboo, but they have become the norm for women. And
Mhm.
then there are things in the book that are taboo and they're a little confusing. You don't have all the details right away, but they're not as shocking and harmful as a thing that we have just normalized. So, do
Right.
you find that reaction to be surprising, alarming, something that happens with a lot of your books? And how do you process that as an author?
I find it frustrating because, like you said, it's like a double standard. It makes me mad because it's like, yes, how are you gonna get mad if you've picked and chose what you're gonna be mad about, this one little thing, but you totally glossed over these really traumatic things, and they didn't affect you at all. They didn't harm you at all. They didn't upset you at all. You chose this one thing that you barely know anything about, and you decided to get onto your podium and start hollering about it. And it is frustrating because I'm like, one of the things with that was a lot of people came after me saying I was harming women and all of this stuff, with my fictional story. And at the same time, they were taking to social media to just tear me down, go after all of my opportunities, try to destroy my career, try to do all of this stuff. And I thought, okay, so I'm destroying women? Because right now you're destroying this woman. Like, I don't really understand, again, the double standards. Like, my story's fictional, and not to mention, so many people came to me and say, "Your stories helped me. I went through terrible things," or "This happened to me. This story helped me. I love this story." So it's like, who are you speaking for? Because the people that you claim to be speaking for are coming to me saying they don't speak for me, you know? And so it's frustrating to see, like, that they're fine with books with all the bad stuff that happen, but my book, since it's the characters are in love, it makes it bad what they're doing, and I'm just like, "Okay." It's not gonna impact me because it doesn't really make sense to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just I don't know how to explain that.
Well, I think you're doing a really good job. And I'm so grateful that you're willing to drop into this space and talk about it. And I think something that's standing out to me is that we can be shocked about something, or we can read something for the first time, or something can be totally new and refreshing, and the story structure is different, and all of the things you're mentioning, like a writer that you have to trust and trust the process and say, I'm taking you somewhere in this story. Just trust me, lean in. But we have also not maybe given much thought to the fact that we'll consume things like even on our pre-production call we talked about, well, people loved Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones did not get any of the criticism that your books got, which were far less violent
Right,
and
and less
far
stuff.
less fantastical. And what's that like? Is it because something is being written by a woman for women predominantly? What goes into that where we make that judgment call? And there are people in the world who actually do harmful things. And where is the judgment and reaction for that, right? Like we're sharing stories here and it's a work of fiction, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so that surprise and shock and that harm that you mentioned, like attacking the opportunities and things like that, when you didn't come into this and say, I'm a documentary filmmaker, you're saying,
Right.
I'm writing a piece of fiction.
Right. Well, and that was the kinda thing that got me is people were getting so upset, like I was creating a handbook on how to be morally corrupt. And I'm like, "This is not a handbook." Literally, honestly, the stuff that I read in my books, and like I said, I've got a very normal, boring life. I do not like any of this stuff in real life. But in my books, in this safe little environment that read and explore. Yes, I wrote The Wild, and when I reread through it, I literally cringed the whole time. Like, I wrote this book and it made me cringe. That was the point. Like, it was supposed to, like, get in there and really mess with your mind a little bit. Like, the books are an experience, an adventure, like, they're not somewhere to move in. You just go through them and learn what's going on in that world and be like, "Ooh, that was crazy," but you felt something, it was interesting, and you might not be so judgmental the next time, you know, a talk show comes on and someone's like, "This happened," and you're not gonna go, "Oh, you sickos, you nasty people," you know? You might go, "Oh, wow, I guess I mean, I don't know their circumstances. Gosh, I really hope they figure it out," you know? Like, I don't know, I just feel like it it just helps challenge your mind, and I love challenging my own mind, and I love challenging other people's minds, and sometimes that makes them mad because they don't wanna be challenged. They do not wanna be challenged. So,
Oh, I definitely hear that. And one of the things I'm hearing you say is also you're writing a story, a complicated story of flawed humans, which we all are, by the way. And it's not a kink manual. This is not a manual for how to do this. And sometimes I think because it might feel shocking to someone, they might feel like it is that. And that's not really your responsibility because it's very clearly a work of fiction. And I also think it's very interesting how there's almost a disregard for the complicated stories that people do have. We get pulled in all
right.
sorts of directions. You don't have to end up in a story like The Wild, but you can have something in your own life that really challenges you, that you want to pull yourself out of, or you're not sure you belong there. And it's interesting to see the reactivity.
Yeah.
Almost
No,
like not
and
being able to meet it from a position of neutrality and say, it's a book, you know?
right. Well, and I would say it was definitely that way in the beginning. It was such a hot topic, like, trigger, like, the whole book
Yeah.
was a trigger, and it would just send people into a rage. But fast forward, that book, I think, came out in 2017, and now it's 2025, so it's been a while. A lot has changed, and people are
Yeah.
not that reactive to those books like they used to be.
Yeah. Well, what's it like to be in a position of being banned in 2025 off of certain platforms? Because my mind, when I first saw that, was like, oh my God, that's the worst thing that could happen. But maybe I'm wrong. So, can you tell me what that's like for you as a creative, as a writer?
Well, for me, I was surprised because again, Game of Thrones is out there. They do all the things. I didn't really feel like my book had anything crazy. I mean, yeah, it had crazy things, but literally there was nothing specifically that I felt like would get me banned. Maybe I was just naive. I don't know. But it did. It got banned before it even went live because the ARC readers had all went in there and like reported it. But, anyway, it was banned before it went live, which was very stressful, and if I didn't have the massive support, for wanting to read it or the people that were like, "I don't believe that, this should be censored, blah, blah, blah," it would have been very easy to go, "Okay, I shouldn't have done that," but I had so many people going, "You're okay, girl. This was a good book. You didn't do nothing wrong. You're okay, like, we got your back," and I had, like, big, big authors coming to my inbox to tell me, "We can't post anything out there because we don't wanna get the backlash, but just know I got your back." And so, I had this, like, really amazing, quick, fast, rapid response team of support that I was like, "Okay, I can do this." And then I had all these other people going, "Well, I wanna buy the book. How do I buy the book? It's banned. I need the book. How do I get the book? How do I get the book?" And then I had, still those people going, "Oh, you're the worst human on the planet." But I was almost like, I couldn't even focus on them because I had so many people trying to buy the book. And so then it was like, we went into like customer service mode. How do I get you the book? How do I get you the book? So then it was like, create a website, well, I first kept moving it to different places and all of the people that were after me that were protecting the women who were actually chasing after this woman were reporting me to all the places to get me banned on all of the things. And I was just like, okay, well, so I did on my own website because nobody could ban me on my own website.
Yeah.
I had a backup plan, like, I have enough family members, like, if they were somehow to get my PayPal banned, I just would have a million backups. My whole family was there to support me,
Yeah.
and so we would figure it out, and luckily, PayPal was like, "We'll take your money, we don't care." But everybody else was like, "Oh my gosh, your content, blah, blah, blah." But anyway, they came after me, but so many people wanted it, and then I finally got it on my website, and then it was just like and they want the paperback, and so I was, like, buying, like, and I was having a hard time finding a place to print the book because they even went to my printer and told them I was writing this bad stuff, and they banned me on the
Yeah.
printer, and so I was, like, having to scramble to find and the demand for it was so high, and I was, like, unable to supply it, and And finally, it was like I was getting all these books and I was shipping out orders left and right, and it was good because there was that support of all of these people, plus, like, the monetary support, like, "Okay, you did okay, like, you're still doing okay." And so it, like, kept me going, like, "Okay, you can do this, even though I felt kind of like I don't know, like a bad girl trailblazer, like, "Come jump on the bad girl train," and everybody's like, "Okay," you know?
Wow, I'm I feel like I'm looking at you like I'm shocked. And I think I want to just touch on that only because I have read quite a few of your books and just from the reader's perspective did not find them to be ban worthy because I read the whole story. So I think the
Mhm.
part that I was a little shocked about was when you mentioned the ARC readers participating in the banning and the fact that you kept going, that you have a support system, that you just persevered is very interesting to me. And then in the middle of it, wrote 150 other books. Like,
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
just that you went into customer service mode. You are a prolific writer and you continue to lean into the creativity. And not just that, to share it with all of us. You never know how we're going to respond. So,
right. Well, and for me, again, writing is an escape for me. It's getting into new worlds is fun for me and I enjoy it. And so if I'm having any kind of stress or whatever, guess what? I'm going to go write a book because I can just immerse myself in there and not face all of the things that are like attacking me left and right. And so to me, it was like, "Okay, go write some more books because that way you can kind of ignore the stress," and my family was very great. I mean, obviously, I had issues because it was stressful and it would break me down a
mhm.
lot, but I never showed it online because I didn't feel like I wanted those people hating on me to get that from me, and so, like, my kids would be like, "Mom, why are you crying?" And then I would have to have, like, a good talk about online bullying and what it does to people and things like that. And my husband was like, "I'm gonna go beat up everybody," and I'm like, "No, please don't." And so I'm like, "Please don't say anything, don't comment anything." And I'd have to tell my readers, "Y'all don't have to fight my battles. Like, just leave it alone. If you want the book, you get the book. You're fine. Just don't engage." And so I don't know. It was intense to like have all those people like come after you. I don't know. It was stressful, but to me, moving on just meant writing more books and also kind of proving that you're not gonna stop me. Also, this isn't the only thing I write because a lot of people were like, "Oh, she just writes this nasty stuff." And I'm like, "Well, first of all, I didn't think it was nasty, but I also write other things. I've got a bunch of contemporary romances. I have books that'll make you cry, and literally I wrote a book not too long after that, 2 books after called The Day She Cried, and it had themes of cyberbullying and stuff in it. And it was a tearjerker and it performed really well. Like people really liked that book. But so for me it was just moving on, which is a coping mechanism. you
Well,
know?
I mean, I'm just grateful that you're talking about it because I think that people listening, I think what I'm trying to say is some of the response that you got was, "Oh, this is harmful to women." And yet here I am hearing you talk and I think this is the talk I think a lot of women need to hear. And it's about really just standing in your power and energy and creativity and using your voice. And I'll be honest, I'm very easily dissuaded from things. And I'm just a human being who really struggles with that when, there's that intense feedback. It's just like, all right, I'll throw my hands up and back away. And what I'm getting from you is that there is another way. And so, not to put you in the position of trailblazer, but it's an important story to share. So,
Mhm.
I love that you're talking about it and I appreciate that. And I think it is interesting when you point out that you do have such a large body of work, but across a huge spectrum as well. You're talking about a lot of different things. And I feel like that just speaks to you just have a million stories in you and you just want to get them all out. And that's a beautiful thing to share with all of us. So, just as a reader, I want to say thank you. But then also, as someone who's listening to this conversation, thank you for sharing so openly about your journey because it would be very easy to say, yeah, it was hard, then it was over. And instead, you're just kind of inviting us in. And I just really appreciate that. So, thank you.
Of course.
Let's talk a little bit about storytelling and sexuality, right? Because that in and of itself is such a wide spectrum. We all have different experiences. And so when you're a storyteller and a writer and you're sharing these things, and you're sharing it with an anonymous audience. Like, yes, you have your people that love you, but you are sharing it with the world. What is that like when you can be sharing something that happens in other people's lives or is part of the norm or is part of the taboo, but it's part of the human experience and someone is meeting it for the first time in your book? What is it like to get that instant reaction, whether it's good or bad? Because in that way, you're trailblazing too, where you're introducing someone to a level of curiosity maybe they just didn't have prior to that.
I like it. I mean, I think that's part of the appeal to me is, like, making people think and really just forcing them outside of their box of normal thinking, and, I mean, I, for one, like, books have done that for me. A lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, what if my mom reads this? That's so embarrassing," and when I'm writing my books, I'm, like, so immersed in the story and the characters, I'm not thinking of the end result of who's on
Mm,
the other end of it. Like, I literally am writing what's making me happy, what I'm enjoying, like, I'm having fun living in this world, and then I go and push it out into the world, and you guys can love it, hate it, whatever, but I did the part that I wanted to do and that made me happy, and yeah, I don't get distracted by I don't even write thinking, "Oh, is someone gonna get onto me on social media
yeah.
about this?" Like, I don't really think that way, like, my own personality and stuff shapes the way I write, and I already know how I am as a person, so that's gonna come out into my writing. I don't necessarily have to force it to be a certain way, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I always think it's interesting how reactive the world is, right? We all are. I'm not pointing fingers. We all are. When a woman challenges our ideas or makes us slightly uncomfortable and we're programmed to believe that that's not allowed. And it's wild when that comes up within us. And I feel like it's an invitation to almost take a personal inventory and be like, "Oh, what part is me? What part is me kind of reacting and pointing a finger or lashing out? And does everyone have to do exactly what I want or say the things that I want or write the books that I want?" Making
Mm,
space for people to have different ideas and creativity and all of that. So I just always think it's very interesting the difference and the way women are treated. It's just very interesting to me in general. And we see it in our daily lives as well. Even if someone's not a creative, they're not writing, they're not putting things out there. You can just see it in a work life, a family environment. You could do the same thing as someone else and it gets perceived very differently. So I love that we're having this conversation and I want to pick your brain about a few more things that I've noticed go on in your book. So one of the things I always find very interesting is the generational aspect of some of the books that you've written. And I'll give an example. The Wild was one where we're learning about our main characters, but we're learning about their origin stories. We're learning about the people that brought them into the world and the people that brought those people into the world and how some of this travels through whatever that legacy is, whether it's trauma, love, healing, harm. Where did that come from for you in your creative process? Because it was a beautiful aspect of the story. It really shapes it. And I don't think I'm giving anything away, but there's
mhm.
depth to the storytelling. And I just want to pick your brain about that a little, about the generational aspect.
I think it's because for me, I love layers and stories, and that is a layer and a layer and a layer and a layer. And in our own lives, they're very layered. It's not just like, oh, I'm here. Like I have a mom, my mom has a mom, mom's mom has a mom, and they dealt with this and they dealt with this, and we went through this, and I went through this as a kid, but then now go through this as an adult, and all the things that come through. And so to me, I feel like it just gives the story more richness when you can, like, I don't know, really dig deep and, like, find where all of those little threads go because I feel like they're all connected. And, a lot of times, like, on movies or TV, they don't have that because they don't really have it's just different than books, and
Yeah.
it's just very, like, surface, here it is, blah, 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 and for me, I'm always like, but what's the backstory? What's the history? What happened to make them this way? Like, what created them to be like that? Like, I love the villains' origin stories because it's like they weren't always the bad guy. What made them? Who hurt them? Like I want to know all of the pieces, and I don't know. I feel like that's what I can do that in writing, and it gives it just I don't know more. I don't know more to play with.
Absolutely. I noticed that in the free as well. And actually, the rest of the books in that series, it's just very interesting when you do that. And I feel like it's just this constant invitation to challenge what you thought you knew. And I don't feel like we're dealing with unreliable narrators, but there's just more to this. Even they don't know some of these things. So it was really beautiful to see that play out. Well, tell me about what you're working on now and, the next 150 books that we can expect from you.
Right now I'm working on a Amazon safe taboo story and it's called My Mom's Man. But it's safe for Amazon in the fact that it's more of a not even a stepdad situation, but like her mom's boyfriend or whatever. And it's low angst, it's part of a world. It's just a almost like a palate cleanser for me as a writer and for the readers. It's something short, steamy, a little bit emotional, but you get your happy ending. And, I like putting those in there in between these books because it really does give my brain a little reset, because after I finish that, I'm going to be jumping back into the wild world, and I'm gonna be writing this book called The Rowdy Ones, and it's following Devin and Reed's oldest son as he gets his love story. And so I know I'm gonna have to dig deep, get into the psychological aspects that he's going through, all of the stuff that's in that world, really connect. There's a lot of characters that I'm gonna have to make sure that I don't miss anything, mess anything up. So it's a one that takes a lot more brain power than like My Mom's Man. And then I'll write another story after the rowdy ones called Loud Hot Roomy that's in the same world as My Mom's Man, and it's male male opposites attract roommates situation. So again, low angst, spicy with emotions but short to the point. And then I'm going to work on a dark-ish hockey series, and these are like troubled guys who, have this is their last chance to do good, and of course they're not very good at being good, and it's just a lot of forced proximity and then found family, and I'm excited to work on that one. So
Just 400 ideas and books coming our way. It's like an avalanche of creativity. I love that. You know what's so interesting? I was just thinking as you were speaking, my background was in psychotherapy. And so when I would first meet patients, one of the things I would say is, what do I need to know about you in order to give you the best care possible? Meaning, what is it about you that's not obvious? I can't see it, or you feel like is so core to who you are. And the answers were always really surprising. And I've actually never asked it on this podcast, but I was just sitting with you and listening to you, and I loved our pre-interview call. I actually told someone else, I was like, I wish I was her neighbor so we could get coffee. Like, I adore you. But what is it about you that we don't know that would be something that you wish people did know about you?
That's a good question because I feel like being an author, you kind of have your author persona, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, like the person that's out there representing the books. And that is me, but like it's again like the very surface version of me. And so people don't see the fact that I'm a very anxious person, ADHD, like the world's okayest mom ever. Like I can barely keep my house together. My sister has to come over and help me sometimes because I'm like freaking out. And I love to work. I love to write. I choose that sometimes over adulting. And again, that's the whole escape thing. And I feel like I'm like a very loyal, good friend. People don't really get to see that in the book world because they're just seeing the author, but like once I meet a friend, they're mine forever, like I don't let go of friends. And so that's again like with the wild that kind of hurt because I lost some friends. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And I kind of closed off after that a while because I didn't know what to think about that. Like I've been betrayed. And so I'm very like, I guess a little bit tenderhearted underneath this, I'm tough. I can do all the things. I get my feelings hurt too, just like everybody else. And I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of a very average mom doing above average things. Like it's, I don't really know how to explain it. That's just me.
I mean, all of that. That was so generous. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I appreciate it. And it's things we wouldn't know just by glancing at someone or categorizing them. Even I was hesitating as I was opening the episode, and I apologize for feeling like I felt like I sounded awkward, but part of it was I didn't want to categorize you because I know that you have this massive library that you've written, and to just assign someone the title of Taboo Queen when there's a million more stories within you, I was a little uncomfortable about it, but I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard it, so nothing I said was unique. But I think that's why I really wanted to ask that question, because I felt like I'm watching you write characters who have so much dimensionality. They are rich. There's texture. There's so many layers to them. Even the young characters, right? You can look at Devin and be like, well, she's so young. She's, does she have much?
Mhm.
She does. And I just wanted to lean into the fact that there was so much more to you than even most of us are seeing. So I just really appreciate that you even shared all of that, because I know that that question kind of came out of nowhere and it's a little intrusive, but thank you for handling it
No.
so well.
Yeah.
So,
No,
no, I
like, I like, at the core of all of my books, there's some sort of, like, personal redemption story,
yeah.
like, with all of the characters, even the bad guys. Like, I feel like I could redeem any one of them and you guys would be on board. And at first you would be like, "No, I don't wanna read this. That's the bad guy." But then I would show you all these layers of the bad guy that make you feel bad for the bad guy and then question
Mm.
everything that you thought. And, like, that's the fun in it to me, So, I don't know. It's exciting.
Well, I appreciate I'm sure you and I are both the bad guy in someone's story. So I'm sure we have
Yeah.
very colorful backstories. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that point of view. Well, I am so grateful that you joined me here today. You've shared so much. You've invited us into your process, your world. I'm so thankful because I love your books. And now I feel like I love them even more because I got a little bit more backstory. And one of the things that I always invite my guests to do on this podcast is to write and read a love letter, either to their younger selves or to their readers. So I would love to just give you the floor to share your love letter.
I would like to do it to my readers because I would like to say thank you for being curious about my books, then reading my books, sticking along for the weird journeys that I take you on, trusting me throughout the process, becoming my friends throughout it because I feel like all of us are kind of connected. We're book buddies, like that's how I see all of them. And being excited, getting me excited, sending me encouraging messages that literally make me want to do more. I had a friend that's like, "Oh, you should write hockey romance one day." And I was like, "That's a good idea." And so I'm so thankful for the community of my readers because they're so supportive, and I feel like literally every single one of you, I could say, "Hey, you wanna meet up for coffee or come over to my house and we can, like, hang out," talk about books, "Let's go eat lunch and talk about books. Let's meet at the bookstore." Like, I love that, and I'm just thankful that it's a very almost like give and take relationship with readers and not just, "Here's my thing, go buy it," and you guys are like, "That was great. Here's your review." No, it's very like, "This made me feel a certain way," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's what I wanted. Thank you." So, thank you for my readers for being there and being my book buddy.
Oh, so beautiful. And I'm just grateful that you're here today and sharing so much with us. So, we're going to pivot because there's a special little segment to this episode. Sandra, you and I are mutuals on TikTok, and I know that you love Kay Webster. And when I said that she was joining me on the podcast, I was like, give me your questions. Do you have anything you want to ask? So, give me one moment and I'm going to ask. So, I'm going to read them and you tell me which one you want to answer. She said,
Okay.
how does she feel about having her books banned? Question 2 was, what inspired Hale? Question 3 was, in Hale, it's mentioned that the main female character joins a support group. And what type of research did you do to accurately share that support group experience? And then she said, I don't want to be intrusive, but I'm just very curious. So,
Yeah.
any of
No,
those that you can answer?
yeah, I can answer all of them. How it feels to be banned, it sucked. It sucked because it was stressful, but now I wear it like a badge of honor, and I use it wisely now. So, okay, if this has this element, I know that it'll probably get banned. So I'm going to put this out on my website and it's going to be too bad for Amazon. And then people know, like, okay, that's right up my alley. Hail came about because I was on one of my forbidden reading journeys and I came across a book called Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. That book broke my soul. It broke my soul. It was very, very sad. It was about a brother and a sister, and they were, had all these problems at home, and they were basically the caretakers for their younger siblings. And then things happened, and it did not end the way that I wanted it to end. It was not a romance in the typical sense of you get your happily ever after. And so when I reached the end of that book, I was like, "What? What?" I love the book. It's one of my favorites. I own it
Mhm.
in paperback. But I was like, "If I ever write a story like that, I'm giving them a happy ending." And so Hale, completely different story, but same kind of character setup, and they had a lot of emotional things happening to them. But I was like, "I'm still gonna make sure they get a happily ever after because that's what I need. I need that." And then, as far as the research and stuff, I research a lot for all of my books. Like I'm a nerd with psychological stuff. Like I'm always doing like personality things. Like I love the Enneagram. I love to know like all the things about what, personality types people have. And I just I like to know, even in not just that book per se, but like Whispers and the Roars, like I was able to find people with the same psychological disorders that some of these people had and really like find videos on YouTube and really see it like not just in textbook format, like, "This is what this is," or on the movies or whatever, but, like, real people, and then you're able to, like, take that and go, "Okay, now I can convert this into a story," because I've seen how people who really have this, how they live and what they struggle with and what upsets them and what makes them happy, and then I'm able to pull that over and what helps them and their treatments and the medicines they take and, like, everything, and just kinda pull that in for my own stories, so I do research, obviously, in books and stuff, like terminology and things like that, but I also research the people, actual people who are saying, "This is my journey. This is what I'm dealing with. This is how this affects me," because it just makes it so real, and I'm able to pull that in little pieces for my own characters, so
Oh, I think we're really feeling that because it's interesting. I feel like and I don't know if the word resonates for you, but I just feel like there's so much compassion for your characters and for their journeys. And I never feel like you're writing a caricature of someone, even some of the people that are very challenging characters, right? I just feel like there's an honesty there. So I appreciate you answering that question. I'm sure Sandra will as well. And I can't wait to tell her about this. So thank you for just going deep and sharing so much with us. And I want to just give you the floor for a second again. You'd mentioned your website. I will definitely put links in the show notes, but where are you on social media? Where do you like to interact with people? Or should people sign up for a newsletter, go to the website? What do you like for people to do?
I try to stay everywhere, but, when things get overwhelming, it's natural to retreat. Right now, I'm spending most of my time on TikTok, and I've been putting videos out there and interacting with people over there, and Instagram, same thing. Facebook, not as much, but sometimes more, and so I do have a newsletter where I mail out every single Monday. I kinda update everybody what's going on, what's coming out, new releases, what's going on in my personal life, so it's kind of like if you really wanna know the updates, the newsletter's good, but you get more personality, I guess, like in the TikTok videos and stuff, because you
Yeah.
see I'm just being silly, and you can actually ask real-time questions on stuff like that, so but yeah, and my website is also, like, a place where people are always coming to get, like, signed copies or whatever, and people leave me messages on their orders and stuff like, "Oh, I love purple pens. Can you put a purple pen in mine?" Or just whatever, like, "Oh, this book is for my grandma and it's a gag gift. So, write happy birthday grandma on the wild." And I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." You know?
Oh,
But, but it's funny and I'm like it's like I get to play with my readers a little
yeah.
bit in that aspect too. So, basically wherever you can find me and people email me, people they're pretty good at finding me and I'm pretty good at responding.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm busy or overwhelmed, but for the most part, I answer pretty quickly, so
Yeah. You have the warmest, best energy. And thank you so much for being here and just chatting so openly. I hope you come back and join me again soon. You can talk about any book you're putting out. I would love to chat with you. I eat them up. And
Oh,
I actually don't have like a big book community, so I love when I get to talk to people about books. And I just appreciate you being here. So please come back and join us again.
well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok at Love Letters and Books. And if you're interested in being a guest on Love Letters and Books, suggesting your favorite author, or just want to write in an original love letter to yourself or someone else to be read on air, please send me an email at lovelettersandmixtapes@gmail.com.